Assalamualaikum to everyone. Today we're learning our health. Let's get started. Let's get started.
Leave me alone. What is it, Moby? Dear Tim and Moby, how come my older brother is always so grumpy? What's going on? Signed, Sam. Well, he's probably just going through adolescence. That's the part of our lives when we transform from kids into adults. It all begins with puberty, a series of physical changes. Puberty can begin as early as 8 and as late as 14. Your body begins releasing chemicals called hormones, which trigger changes throughout the body. In boys, a hormone called testosterone leads to a deepened voice, bigger muscles, and facial hair. Girls produce estrogen, which makes their periods start, and leads to the growth of breasts and hips. Both boys and girls start growing hair on their legs, underarms, and downstairs. Puberty makes both boys and girls grow bigger and taller. But that's not all. Breasts and hips. Both boys and girls start growing hair on their legs, underarms, and downstairs. Puberty makes both boys and girls grow bigger and taller. But that's not all. During adolescence, your brain changes too. You develop more control over your impulses because you use better judgment and reasoning. But the hormones flooding your body also intensify your emotions. So it's normal for adolescents to have mood swings. You might feel happy one minute and sad the next for no apparent reason. And then... Would you let me finish talking for once? Sorry. I'm just kind of grumpy today. Anyway, teenagers' moods aren't just caused by hormone shifts. For one thing, sorry. You might feel happy one minute, and during adolescence, the growth of breasts and hips. Both boys and girls start growing hair on their legs, underarms, and downstairs. Puberty makes both boys and girls grow bigger and taller. But that's not all. During adolescence, your brain changes too. You develop more control over your impulses because you use better judgment and reasoning. But the hormones flooding your body also intensify your emotions. So it's normal for adolescents to have mood swings. You might feel happy one minute and sad the next for no apparent reason. And then... Would you let me finish talking for once? Sorry. I'm just kind of grumpy today. Anyway, teenagers' moods aren't just caused by hormone shifts. For one thing, seeing your body change so quickly can make you really self-conscious. It's not uncommon to develop some acne, better known as pimples. That's your hormones telling your skin to produce too much oil, and in most cases, washing your face more will take care of it. On the other end of the spectrum, you might be self-conscious about how little you're changing compared to other kids. Right, it's not all about physical changes. It can be frustrating when you feel like an adult, but still get treated like a kid. Teens place more value on their independence and freedom than younger kids. They may feel restricted by their parents and want to spend more time with their friends, and that often leads to peer pressure. Sometimes that's a good thing. Your friends might encourage you to keep up with your schoolwork or join a club or a team. But it can also involve pressure to try unhealthy behaviors like smoking, drinking, and other stuff. Even if no one actively pressures you, you might be influenced by your peers' behavior. Most adolescents want to fit in and not seem weird or uncool. Yep, the pressures of adolescence can overwhelm some kids. They can get really stressed out or depressed and even consider hurting themselves. If you're feeling like that, you need to talk to an adult you trust. And if a friend seems to feel that way, tell an adult immediately. Sorry for getting so serious, but it's a real problem. Yeah, adolescence can be a really awkward and difficult time. But it's also a time of self-discovery when you start to figure out who you are and who you want to become. To help make those kinds of choices, you might look up to role models like athletes, musicians, and famous actors. It's also common to experiment and try new things. Well, you become curious about ideas, different kinds of people, and new experiences. You might also become more interested in having a boyfriend or girlfriend. It can feel like a long ordeal, but as you reach the end of adolescence, you're more independent, smarter, and more confident. In other words, more like an adult. Do you like this band? Maybe I'll join a band. What? It'd be cool to be in a band.
The next thing you're gonna know is Jack. The hygienes. Let's get started.
Remove swab from collection receptacle and gently scrape inside of cheek with a spinning motion. I don't know what you expect to find out. Trust me, you're not a Romanov. Dear Rita and Moby, what does it mean when someone says it's in my genes? From Barbara. Well, you've probably noticed that family members often resemble each other. The similarities can be physical, like hair color, or personality stuff, like a goofy sense of humor. Some of these traits or qualities can be explained by the way we're raised. But other similarities run deeper. They're written into instructions within our cells. And these instructions are inherited, passed on from parents to children. That's what people mean when they say it's in my genes. But even before scientists discovered genes, people knew that some traits were inherited. Ancient farmers even found a way to influence the process. Like if they wanted to grow larger fruit, they'd take two plants with the biggest fruit and breed them. Their young, or offspring, would be more likely to have those traits too. Keep breeding plants with the biggest fruit, and the size increases in the whole crop. This practice of choosing which individuals to breed is called artificial selection. Farmers have been improving crops and livestock with it for thousands of years. So it's no surprise that the guy who figured out how it really worked was the son of a farmer. His name was Gregor Mendel, and he chose to study pea plants. They were easy to grow and breed and had lots of different traits he could observe. In the mid-1800s, he bred thousands of pea plants and recorded their traits. Things like height, pod shape, and flower color. At the time, it was thought that inheritance worked by blending traits from both parents. Like if a white flowering pea bred with a purple one, the offspring would be light purple. But Mendel found that in pea plants, traits didn't mix like paint, they stayed separate. When he bred plants with white and purple flowers, their offspring's flowers weren't light purple. They were either white or purple. The same pattern held for other features he studied. The offspring would have the same trait as one parent, not a mix of both. To Mendel, that meant traits must be passed down in separate units. He called these units factors and believed they were stored in cells. It was a revolutionary idea, maybe too revolutionary. Other scientists ignored it for decades. Nope, Mendel was definitely onto something. Turns out, every cell in an organism has the same number of these tiny structures called chromosomes, except for reproductive cells. They only have half as many. When reproductive cells from two parents fuse to create offspring, two cells become one. But the chromosomes don't fuse. They stay separate from one another. So the offspring ends up with the same number of chromosomes as its parents. It's just like what Mendel described, separate units inherited from each parent. Mendel's factors are what we now know as genes. They're located in chromosomes, and each one carries instructions for a trait. Well, chromosomes are mainly made of a substance called DNA. It holds the secret to genes and to life on Earth. Hidden within DNA's ladder-like structure is a code that cells can read. The rungs of the ladder are made of 4 different building blocks. You can think of them as letters in a very simple language. String enough of them together, and they can spell out the instructions for building and operating an organism. That's all a gene is, the instructions for a specific trait written in DNA. A lot of the code has to do with making proteins. These molecules are like the construction equipment for life. They can be built to do just about anything, from making a plant grow taller to giving its flowers a certain color. Genes control these traits by telling cells how to build different proteins. So those factors that Mendel first imagined are located on strands of DNA, which are bundled into chromosomes, which get passed from parents to their offspring. Well, that's if everything goes right. Every time genes get copied, like when a cell divides in 2, there's a chance of mutation. That's a change to DNA's code, kind of like a typo in a set of instructions. Mutations can mess up a gene's instructions for building a protein. Usually it's not a big deal. It's like when you can still make out a misspelled word. But sometimes the mistake changes the meaning of the word. When this kind of mutation happens, cells function differently from how they're supposed to, which can change traits in all kinds of ways. That's usually not good for the organism. A lot of diseases are caused by a genetic error that gets passed down in reproductive cells, like hemophilia, a dangerous condition that prevents the blood from clotting. But occasionally, a mutation turns out to be beneficial. Like, say a mutation in a fish's DNA gives it better camouflage. It'll be better at hiding from all the predators that want to eat it. And if it survives, it may pass that same trait on to its offspring. This process, called natural selection, is how useful traits spread in nature. But that process can take millions of years. Like I said before, ancient farmers used artificial selection to speed up the process. And today, humans have more control over genes than ever. Scientists can now change DNA by editing its code directly. That could give us the power to cure genetic diseases and make all kinds of other changes. Well, Mendel's pea plants were easy. A single gene caused a single trait. But the relationship between genes and traits isn't always so straightforward. One trait can be affected by many genes, and one gene can affect many traits. Plus, whatever your genes are, behavioral stuff like nutrition and exercise can affect how things turn out. All of which means it's really hard to predict the effects of editing DNA. We have a lot of thinking to do before we start messing with human genes. Whoa, same-day service! Congratulations! You are now the proud owner of your own pair of genetically tailored jeans. Wear them in good health. I gotta say, they are flattering.
The next thing we're gonna learn is baby information about the mother. The mother's. Let's get started.
Hey, too fast. Oh. Well, I guess that was bound to happen. Dear Tim and Moby, how does a baby grow? From Eric. The human development process starts when an egg cell is fertilized by a sperm cell. Some babies are born with a male reproductive system, which can produce sperm cells. Others are born with a female reproductive system, complete with about 100,000 egg cells, or ova. They're contained in the ovaries, two small organs on either side of the uterus. At puberty, ovaries begin to release one egg into the fallopian tubes each month. While the egg is moving through the tubes, it can be fertilized by a sperm cell. During sexual intercourse, sperm cells are released from the penis, a male reproductive organ. Out of the hundreds of millions of sperm cells released, it takes only one to fertilize the egg. The egg cell and sperm cell join together to make a whole new cell called a zygote, a fertilized egg cell. The zygote divides into 2 cells, then 4 cells, then 8, and so on. It splits about once every 20 hours until it's a hollow ball called a blastocyst. The blastocyst travels through the fallopian tubes and into the uterus. It attaches to the lining of the uterus about a week after fertilization. Yep, the pregnancy has begun. Over about 9 months, that clump of cells will grow into a baby. Pregnancy is usually divided up into 3 trimesters, each about 3 months long. Things happen really fast in the first trimester. After about 2 weeks, the blastocyst becomes an embryo. Cells begin to specialize to form body systems, starting with the nervous system. The embryo gets nutrients from the placenta, tissue that connects it to the mother. The placenta passes oxygen, water, and nutrients to the embryo through a tube called the umbilical cord. Waste from the embryo flows through the cord to the placenta. Then it passes into the mother's circulation to be eliminated. Your belly button is where your umbilical cord used to be attached. Well, not you. During the first trimester, the embryo starts to develop limbs, a heart, and muscles. Its eyes and ears move into place on its head, and a doctor can even hear its heartbeat. Yeah, pregnant people experience all kinds of physical and emotional changes. Their abdomen gets bigger and bigger to make room for the growing baby. Blood flow to the kidneys increases, which means more trips to the bathroom. And hormones, chemical messages sent throughout the body, cause their mammary glands in their breasts to expand. These glands will eventually produce and store milk to feed the baby, if the mom chooses to breastfeed. Changes to hormone levels have all kinds of other effects, too. They can cause unusual food cravings, since they affect our senses of taste and smell. They also influence appetite, which increases to provide enough nourishment for the baby. But sometimes it may seem like the opposite, since changing hormone levels can also cause nausea. All of these changes to a pregnant person's body and lifestyle can affect their mood and leave them feeling exhausted. By the end of the first trimester, the embryo has grown into a 3-inch fetus. During the second trimester, the fetus continues to develop organs and body systems, and the brain grows a lot. Fetuses begin to sleep and wake at about week 18. Around then, doctors can use a scan called an ultrasound to show if it's male or female. By 26 weeks, its brainwaves look like those of a full-term baby, one that's ready to be born. Pregnant people usually feel a bit better and more energetic during the second trimester, and they can start to feel the fetus moving around. By the end of the second trimester, the fetus is a little more than a foot long and weighs 2 to 3 pounds. It's pretty much finished developing body structures by now, but it still has a lot of growing to do. In fact, it gets so big in the third trimester that it has to pull its knees up to its chest to make room in the womb. Gravity starts to pull the big head down. The baby turns upside down and moves into the lower abdomen, ready to be born. Most of us are born head first. Oh yeah, it's normal for someone who's pregnant to feel anxious or scared about the birth. It can be quite painful, and there's always the chance of complications. With today's medical practices, though, childbirth is usually safe and straightforward. It's also super common for expecting parents to feel anxious, nervous, or even sad about the coming baby, along with feeling happy and excited. Becoming a parent is a major change in a person's life. Learning how to juggle the responsibilities of a baby, relationships, work, and everything else can feel really stressful. Many new parents experience bouts of sadness or worry that will eventually fade. For the one who gave birth, hormonal changes can add to the struggle. In any parent, the changes that come with a new baby can cause postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety. It can be tough, but the right support and treatment can help them feel better. And mostly, parents come to enjoy the experience of having children. It's a lot of hard work, but after all, it's how families are made. Well, I don't think robots have babies the same way that humans... I have no response to this.
The next thing you're gonna learn is parenthood. Let's get started.
Dear Timmy, we have our ups and downs, but I hope you realize I always have your best interests at heart. I know being a kid can be tough, but did you know being a parent can be tough too? Love, Mom. I told my mom to stop calling me Timmy. P.S. Please be home by 7 for dinner, and don't forget your science project. Oh yeah. Be right back. Phew, close call. Mom and Dad can drive me nuts, but I really do rely on them. And I get that it's not always a picnic dealing with me either. Parenthood is a big, tough job. Well, pregnancy and giving birth are hard enough. But parenting comes after. Taking care of your kids, loving them unconditionally, and teaching them how to live in the world. And actually, people can become parents in lots of different ways. They might turn to outside help for the pregnancy, or adopt or foster a child, or become guardians of a child in need. A parent's role is always changing because their kids keep changing. In the first stage of life, they're infants, 100% dependent on their parents for survival, for food, to stay clean and warm, for comfort, for literally everything. At first, they can't even hold their heads up on their own, and they're trying to figure out if the world is a safe place. So, parents need to provide love and stability, meeting all their needs. And since infants can't talk, parents have to pay close attention to body language and other forms of communication. Yeah, like crying. And they've got to respond, even if it's the middle of the night. Especially in the early months, parents literally can't give infants too much attention. At this age, babies are learning from their parents how relationships work. If their needs are met consistently, they develop trust. So, when they face tough stuff in the future, they trust that they can turn to other people for support. This allows them to form strong, healthy relationships throughout their life. Infants transition into toddlers when they start, well, toddling around and asserting some independence. Since toddlers can now do some stuff on their own, they want a say in how things go. They have a lot of opinions, and they're not afraid to express them. It's a parent's job to give up some control and let their toddler make choices. Of course, the parent's still in charge and needs to keep the kids safe. It's a delicate balance between allowing some freedom and setting limits. This stage has a lot of trial and error. It's sometimes called the terrible twos. Parents try to tolerate the mistakes and the strong feelings without shaming their kid. That way, toddlers grow confident in their abilities. They feel respected and learn self-reliance. You can think of the stages of childhood almost like levels in a video game. They get more complicated as you go. And the better you do in one level, the more tools you'll have to succeed in the next one. Parenthood is all about helping kids perform the best they can at each stage. A lot of that boils down to giving them more and more independence. Preschoolers begin taking charge by planning games and using their imaginations. School-aged kids start to seek out approval from people other than their parents, like teachers and friends. Adolescents are experimenting to figure out their identities as individuals, which often means rebelling against their parents' authority. This can create conflict, like for, me, putting up with all of Mom and Dad's demands. My curfew, chores, how if I insult Dad's awful cooking, I have to put a quarter in the rudeness jar. Rats. But that's how parents support kids through the challenges of growing up. Setting limits with clear consequences so they make good choices and feel secure. But also encouraging them to try new things and make healthy choices. Listening with an open mind and helping them forge their own path. Until eventually they're independent, responsible adults. Or at least that's the goal. No, Moby, there's no single way to be a good parent. Everyone's parents are different, just like we kids are all different. And every parent makes mistakes. All parents have days where they're tired or distracted or stressed out. Still, if you're frustrated or bothered by something your parents are doing, ask to sit down and talk to them. Unfortunately, there are cases when parents aren't meeting their kids' needs. They're not keeping them safe or healthy or not taking care of them in other ways. Any kid who feels that way should reach out to an adult they trust. Maybe another family member or someone at school. It might feel scary or embarrassing, but those people are there to help. And that's a good point. We don't stop growing when we reach adulthood. People keep changing, no matter how old they get. That goes for your folks, too. In the end, you're your own person, separate from your parents. And if someday you decide to become a parent, you can choose to do things differently. I, for one, would never leave mushy notes in my future kid's backpack. Good luck on your math quiz, Timbo. Oh, I'm proud of you for studying so hard, and I bet you'll do great. Love, Dad. Then again, maybe I would.
The next thing you're gonna learn is part of a special ed thing. Let's get started.
And then I told the guy, it's pretty handy that I know sign language. Get it? 'Cause handy? Oh, never mind. Dear Tim and Moby, one of our classmates has autism, but we're not really sure what that means. Can you help us out? From Raymond and Bonnie. Hey guys. Autism is a condition that disrupts the brain's development. It affects how someone sees and understands the world. An autistic brain doesn't necessarily look special in any way. The main difference we can see is in their behavior, especially in how they relate to other people. People with autism face challenges with communication. For some, it's pretty minor, like they might take everything literally. So it's hard to understand figures of speech or sarcasm. Some may experience context blindness. They struggle to understand how different situations may call for different kinds of behavior. But for others, the difficulties are more extreme. Finding the right words or trying to speak at all can be a struggle. Yeah, autism affects people in very different ways. That's why doctors call it autism spectrum disorders, or ASD. Each person has a different combination of symptoms, and each symptom can have varying degrees of severity. Well, like issues with expressing and interpreting emotions. A person with ASD might not pick up on social cues. Body language, gestures, and even physical contact can lead to confusion. Outwardly, they may seem detached or unemotional, but that doesn't mean they're not sensitive to their surroundings. In fact, the opposite is more often true. Many people with ASD have trouble ignoring sensory input. They can't filter out loud noises, bright colors, odors, or lots of motion, which can lead to constant anxiety. Well, familiarity provides some comfort. A set routine can help someone with ASD feel more relaxed. So can focusing on hobbies or special interests, like being super into trains or sports stats or a certain video game. For others, repetitive movements have a soothing effect, like snapping or ronking. These behaviors can make it hard to fit in with us neurotypicals. And that's the term for people who aren't on the autism spectrum. Because it's not about being normal or abnormal. We're just different. You can help by being sensitive to those differences. Classmates with ASD might need a lot of personal space. They may not want to hug or make eye contact, and that's fine. You may need to speak clearly and steadily to be understood. Being patient will always help your friend feel more at ease. Well, remember, autism affects everyone in different ways. Some people might need full-time assistance to help them with everyday tasks, while others go to school, get jobs, and raise families. Structured classes and therapy can help people with ASD reach those goals. It's actually more common than you might think. Tens of millions of people around the world have ASD. For reasons we still don't understand, it affects boys more than girls. And no one is exactly sure of the causes. Our genes play a role. Factors in the womb are probably also involved. Well, not everyone in the ASD community thinks we need to find a cure. Instead, they're proud of their unique perspectives and want neurotypicals to value their contributions too. Take Temple Grandin, the animal scientist. As a high school student, she built a squeeze machine to calm herself when she was feeling overwhelmed. She was inspired by the metal chutes ranchers used to medicate cattle. The squeezing action seemed to comfort them. Grandin realized that she connected with how animals think and feel. She used her insight to develop a more humane way to handle livestock. Farmers around the world have adopted Dr. Grandin's ideas. Oh yeah, Greta Thunberg, the environmental activist. She calls autism her superpower. She says it made her focus on how serious the climate change crisis is. At age 15, she began protesting alone outside the Swedish parliament. Her solo strike soon grew into a global phenomenon. A year later, in 2019, Greta was speaking about climate change at the United Nations. Her work inspired kids all around the world. Millions of people skipped work and school for a day of global protests against climate change. Yeah, the world is a better place when we embrace our differences. Me? No thanks, I'm fine. You know what? It is kind of calming.
I got 7 rocket ammo. So if you want to fight, I'm done. No. This guy is annoying as hell. The soccer skin. It's annoying. Steve comes from killing his ass. Kill my teammates first. I hate him.
To their kids when they get good grades.
Hey Dad, guess what? What happened, son? Look who got an A on today's math test. No way, let me see this. Oh my god, son. Good job, this is fantastic. I know, Dad, it's amazing, right? Yeah, absolutely. You know what, Jason? How about me and you go get some ice cream and after that we stop by at the dealership? I'm gonna get you a car. No way, Dad, are you serious? Yes, Jason, of course. Come on, let's go. Thanks, Dad.
And this is how Mexican dads react to their kids when they get good grades.
Oye, pa. ¿Qué pasó, Junior? Mira, es mi examen de hoy de matemáticas. A ver. Muy bien, Junior. Ten. ¿Solo me vas a decir eso? Pues, ¿qué quieres que te diga, cabrón? Es tu pinche obligación sacar buenas calificaciones. Yo todo el pinche día me mato para darles todo a ustedes. Lo menos que puedes hacer es portarte bien y sacar buenas calificaciones.
This is how American dads react to their kids.
Today we're gonna play a game called Addition Block. Let's get started.
Is that you? Is that you? Bro, no! I couldn't fucking end the game. This kid is a dog shit ass kid. I'm not anime either. Yo, can you rush that kid? I need him 100. Go. Rush his bot ass. Yo, that's your teammate, White Kelly? That kid is dog shit. Hey, maybe go take that phone. Bro, that default dog shit. Is he your teammate? He's dog. Oh god. I didn't even push him. He's that dad. He's computer. Well, kill that kid.
Today we're gonna play addition and subtraction. Let's get started.
Bullshit. That's my teammate, but I don't care about him no more. He left me down.
Select one of the tools to start. Touch on each block to count 1 by 1. 3 plus 5 equals 8.
Choose which number to start with. Hold on to 2 and then count on 2 more.
2 plus 2 equals 4. Touch on each block to count 1 by 1.
Choose which number. Hold on to 5 and then count on
5 plus 5 equals 10. Answer quickly. 5 plus 2 equals 7. Answer quickly. 2 plus 3 equals 5. 4 plus 4 equals 8. 5 plus 4 equals 9. Select one of the tools to start. Select one of the tools to start.
Hold on to 2, and then count
plus
on
1
more.
Equals 3. 4 plus 1 equals 5.
Hold on to 5.
1 plus 5 equals 6. Touch on each block to count 1 by 1. 1 plus 2 equals 3.
Yes, even better. Something yellow. Fine.
Today, Tsunami Math. Let's get started.
Maybe something about these stuff.
Moby, come in.
Oh,
some reason all this seems to scream that I'm real down to party, but I'm actually just a regular person who's trying to get real drunk. You know, I'm Ariana Grande.
Today, we're learning math and time at the same time. Let's get started.
I know, but Mom gave us strict orders to be home by 6 o'clock sharp for dinner. Well, the movie is an hour and 35 minutes long. If we figure out exactly what time the movie lets out, we'll know whether we can make it home in time. Dear Tim and Moby, what is elapsed time? From Towson. Elapsed time is the amount of time that elapses or passes from the start of an activity to the end. Knowing how to solve elapsed time problems is important for making plans, like catching a cool new sci-fi action flick. It's also an important part of time management in general.
look at that.
Like if you crawl out of bed at 7:35 and school starts at 8, you'll know how much time you have to get ready. Well, your days of tardiness are numbered, my friend. There are tons of ways to solve elapsed time problems, but we'll stick with 2, the cutout clock with movable hands, and the T-chart. Don't worry, you'll get it after we try a few examples. First, let's figure out when Time Twisters is really going to start. It says it's starting at 3:10, but we know there will be about 15 minutes of previews and commercials first. So, what time will the movie really start? Let's use the T-chart for this one. We write the starting time above the left column and minutes above the right column. We know previews take 15 minutes, so we fill the right column with 5-minute intervals until we total 15. Then we add 5 minutes at a time to the start time. The time we get when we catch up to the right column is our answer. Okay, let's try another one with the clock. We took the 2:20 bus and got to the movie theater at 2:55. How long did the bus ride last? To the clock. First, we set the hands to the starting time. Then we move the minute hand 5 minutes at a time, counting as we move to the finish time. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and 35 minutes. And that's how long the bus ride lasted. Right, the T-chart and the clock both use the same basic strategy. Take the starting time, then add minutes in bite-sized chunks until you reach the ending time. This way, the strategy also works for larger units of time, like days, weeks, months, and years. So we can calculate how many days we'd have to wait if we want to see the movie next Tuesday, or what year it'll be when Time Twisters 2, the sequel, comes out 3 years from now. Exactly. Use the same T-chart, but just replace minutes with days or years. Or swap out the clock for a calendar. But that's a problem for another time. Back to minutes and hours. Let's use both the clock and the T-chart for something that lasts longer than an hour, like the 3:10 showing of Time Twisters. We simply tackle the hours first, then the minutes. First, remember we already figured out that after the previews, the movie won't start until 3:25. The movie is 1 hour and 35 minutes long, so let's add that hour first. Then let's add 35 minutes, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and 35. Since the minute hand has made a full circle on the clock, we advance the hour 1 more hour. And there you have it, the movie ends at exactly 5 o'clock. We'll confirm that by drawing 2 T-charts, one for hours and one for minutes. Starting with hours, we add 1 to each column. That gets us to 4:25, which we plug into the second chart as our new starting time. Now we can add minutes by 5. There you have it. We'll be out of Time Twisters at 5 o'clock, with an hour to spare before dinner. Right, even with a 35-minute bus ride, we'll definitely make it home in time. Of course, that assumes the bus doesn't take 3 days to get here.
The next thing we're gonna learn is this dish. Let's get started.
Yep. I guess our train's late. Dear Tim and Moby, can you help me with distance, rate, and time problems? From Jack. I have trouble with those too, but they're not so bad once you take them apart. The first thing to know is the formula. Distance equals rate times time. We can also say that rate equals distance divided by time, and time equals distance divided by rate. This formula can help you solve all sorts of problems. Well, like problems involving distance, rate, and time. Listen. 2 trains are traveling in between Detroit, Michigan, and Los Angeles, California on the same track. Their trips start at the same time. The track is 3,600 kilometers long. Train A is traveling from LA to Detroit at a rate of 80 kilometers per hour. Train B is flying along from Detroit to LA and at 100 kilometers per hour. How long will it take for the 2 trains to meet? It's a good idea to read the problem a few times before you do anything. Okay, we need to draw a diagram. We know that the length of track from LA to Detroit is 3,600 kilometers, so let's put that in. And we know that Train A is starting in LA and Train B is starting in Detroit. We know that A is traveling at a rate of 80 kilometers per hour and B is traveling at a rate of 100 kilometers per hour. Right, and now we build an equation. We know the rates. And we don't know the times yet, but we do know that each train will travel for the same amount of time. Well, they both left at the same moment, so when they meet, they'll have been traveling for the same amount of time. The unknown travel time of each train can be expressed by the variable t. If rate times time equals distance, then the distance train A travels is 80t, and the distance train B travels is 100t. We know one other thing. The distance between Detroit and LA is 3,600 kilometers. So the distance each train travels before they meet up with each other has to equal 3,600 kilometers. And their equation, 80t plus 100t equals 3,600.
The next thing we're gonna do is listen to a story. Let's get started.
Cave Club. It's the Cave Club when thunder goes extinct.
The story called The Two Bears.
Hey
The Two
there!
Hungry Bears.
Welcome to the Storytime family. Today we're going to be reading Two Hungry Bears by Linda Cornwell and Jane Chapman.
This shit ass. What the?
Two Hungry Bears. Big Brown Bear and Little Bear shared a den. They shared each other's company. And they shared each other's food. Little Bear nibbled the edges, and Big Brown Bear munched up the middles. In this way, they got along very well.
Where you at?
But one very bright autumn day, Little Bear woke up feeling extra hungry, and Big Brown Bear woke up feeling monstrously hungry. "I'll buy some food for both of us," said Little Bear. "That's very kind of you, Little Bear," answered Big Brown Bear sleepily, and he crept right back to bed. Little Bear went out shopping and bought some things to take back to Big Brown Bear, but she found she was so hungry that she ate everything straight away. Pies and pastries and peanut and chocolates and cheeses and cakes, from sides to middles, middles to sides, and back again. Meanwhile, Big Brown Bear's tummy was rumbling so loudly that the walls of the cave began to shake. "I've been thinking," said Big Brown Bear, "perhaps I should be out shopping for Little Bear." So off he went with his big bag. But when he had filled it right up, he was so hungry that he found he could not wait. He began by munching just the middles. But then he set to work on sausages, strawberries, and sandwiches, not to mention tangerines and toffee and tarts. He sure is hungry. Hamburgers and custard sandwiches, not to mention tangerines and toffee and tarts. He sure is hungry. Hamburgers and custard and spaghetti and soup and pizzas and salad and tomatoes and corn and one small grape. Big Brown Bear ate tops, bottoms, sides, and middles. There was just no stopping him. But when he had finished eating, he began to feel very, very full and very, very guilty. He had left nothing for Little Bear. Uh-oh.
No
Big
scope.
Brown Bear staggered back home where Little Bear was waiting patiently for him. "Did you find any nice middles to munch?" Little Bear asked him. "I can see that you did," she thought to herself. Big Brown Bear could only nod his head. "Did you come across any tasty edges to nibble?" asked Big Brown Bear. "It certainly looks as though you might have," he thought to himself.
Did come to your base and I aired you and your teammate.
Then they sat down together. "I saved you half of a cracker," said Big Brown Bear. "It still has 4 edges to nibble." "I saved you 3/4 of a banana," said Little Bear. "It's all middle with no edges at all." After a while, Big Brown Bear yawned. "I think I'll skip supper," he said. "I'm feeling a little too tired." "An early night will do us both good," agreed Little Bear. The Brown Bear yawned. "I think I'll skip supper," he said. "I'm feeling a little too tired." "An early night will do us both good," agreed Little Bear. They spent a very long time brushing their teeth before Big Brown Bear snuggled into his bed, and Little Bear crept quietly into hers. "Let's collect the food together tomorrow," yawned Big Brown Bear. But tomorrow was a long, long time away because Big Brown Bear and Little Bear slept with their tummies nicely full all through the winter until spring. Yay! Hope you enjoyed Two Hungry Bears. Give us a like and subscribe, and tap on the notification bell for the next story. To buy this book, click on the links below in the description. Thanks for stopping by. Come back and see us again. See you soon. Bye bye.
What? Nigga, I was gonna air that nigga out. You didn't get the kill, right? You didn't, right?
Starfall.com,
I'm coming for you guys.
where children have fun learning.
It's Grandparents' Day. Help Zach write a letter.
Happy Scorpion, I see. I know Scorpion. No. No, how is it?
Grandparents.
No. What is that? What is that? Juice?
You are
Cool.
Well, okay, I'm done. I'm airing all y'all niggas out.
Funny. Cook. From. Dear grandparents, you are funny. I like to cook with you. From Zach. Dear grandparents, you are funny. I like to cook with you. From Zach.
Boy, stop. These niggas keep talking.
I can go talk to your teammate.
Friend.
Stop calling me.
Stop playing with you.
These niggas keep calling me.
Funny.
Oh, he actually killed me, your teammate. I'm gonna talk trash. Hello.
Play.